Good morning. Good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, classmates. And because now I can't believe you're gonna make me say this on stream. Okay. Uh okay. Okay. Are we ready? Yeah, you you did it so. The sponsorship is so bad that it's making me cough. That's exactly it. So and this is a special one-time sponsor, because apparently, according to our administrator, she worked out a deal with the I don't know even whatever to call them. I guess the mother corporation. Uh because otherwise there'd be too much money going in. Because otherwise there'd be too much money going into it. So a special one-time deal. So when I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, classmates, fellow classmates, and I am. Well, we'll talk about why I'm using Procreate in just a little moment, which I need to say hi to hi mommies. There we go. Okay, done. That's it. No more. That's it for today. Now we are. Trust me, I found that just as revolting as half of you, but the other half seems to like that very much. So, unfortunately, the other half also managed to have enough money to make it. Um, so, what was I saying? Yes, today we are going to talk about fusion. But before we talk about fusion, I just want more mommy. Yes. I no, not no. Okay. First of all, no. There will not. I refuse to call. Okay, for the female members, for the women, that's fine. But I'm not going to indulge you, stinky old men, about with any of your crazy weird. I don't know. I don't even know. No, there will be there. There will be no none of this male. I don't know what it is going on there. No. Our administrator, you're listening, right? They are not allowed to form a corporation that forces me to call them anything remotely resembling a father figure of any sort. Are we clear on that? They are simply not allowed to do so. Okay? Okay, good. Tell me you heard me. Our administrators is almost as playful and weird as the last one. But no, tell me you understand me. Okay, good. Okay. Anyway. All of that aside, today we're going to talk about a little bit about fusion. We're going to focus today on fusion actually because we've had this discussion in the classroom a few times now. I've talked about fusion last time, but apparently it wasn't enough because half of you obviously weren't paying attention. But we are going to make sure that you understand what fusion is and why it is completely safe compared to fission. Right? Like fission with fission, absolutely. I will 100% admit that there are risks involved in sort of nuclear fallout and not nuclear fallout. Let's say radioactive fallout. That's better. There are a lot of issues with radioactive fallout, or a lot of risks associated with radioactive fallout in fission, but not fusion. One of our public school students is 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 apparently on the mommy boat. Anyway, so let's talk about. Oh yes, why I am using Procreate. You will remember that last time we had this lesson. I was using Affinity Designer, and that was using my iPad as an extension of the screen. That turned out to be not very easy to work with. So instead, what we're going to do is actually we're going to use. I'm using my iPad natively now, and simply casting this screen onto my laptop. Well, laptop, computer, whatever. The PC, and then that takes that. Oops. Yeah, it'll do that occasionally, where the screen would just go blank for a moment. You're just gonna have to deal with it, honestly. And we're going to do it this way. Yes. Partially just because I don't like drawing with a drawing tablet anymore. Now that I have the iPad, or I mean I've had the iPad for a while. You guys have seen some of my minimalistic abstract art. Um, it just it's just much nicer than the way that Microsoft handles it in Windows, right? Okay, that's it. Yes. So let's talk about Fusion. We're gonna talk about Fusion. Excellent. But before we talk about Fusion, we should talk about Fission again, just to make sure we understand what the problem is. So let's start here. Fission. Just a quick reminder what fission is. We take uranium 238. That looks really weird. 238. And it's this. I'm not going to draw all 238 atoms, but we'll do it that way. And I do like Procreate. Well, okay. On the iPad, I also have used Affinity Designer, but that was back when I didn't actually know anything about what I was doing, and I don't have it anymore. But I think if I had it, I might enjoy that a little bit more because it would. What am I trying to say? It it has vector. It has the ability for me to work in vectors, which, as an engineer, it just appeals to me a little bit more. Whereas Procreate, you really don't get the ability to work in vectors, right? So that makes it a little bit weirder. Yeah. Anyway, so um, actually no, let's do this. I'm gonna do that. Oh, that's a little bit too large. Let's do that. Okay. So we're going to have. Let me see. What palette are we going to use? Yeah, let's do this. So we're going to do. Let's say these. There we go. 3. There we go. So this is a single uranium atom. Okay. Yes. So let's call that. Oh, actually, why didn't I just? Oops. That's okay. Uranium. And let's say we add a neutron to it. And remember, a neutron, all a neutron is, and I realized that size was too big, my bad. Plus neutron, there we go. And all that does is the neutron comes in and destroys that uranium atom. It liberates a little bit more of whatever's inside, and that in itself then explodes, right? It explodes, releases more neutrons, and through that action, it generates heat. So a neutron goes in like that, and then we are going to yes, relax. We're almost done here. Trust me, we're almost done. So that goes away. It's a little bit of a faff that I have to do this. And it releases, I can't remember how many neutrons it releases, probably 2. So essentially what happens is the uranium atom, and this you can see very clearly. You actually remember studying this. Good job, Quitch. You remember, or not you remember, but rather you can see very clearly then from this that, let's take that color, that these two more neutrons than input, right? And that's important. That's important. And this is why a fission reaction is self-sustaining. In that the moment this, why we call it a chain reaction. Let me use a different kind of red. The moment we get into this phase, these two will then come back and release and break apart more uranium-238. Well, not necessarily always 238. It doesn't. There are complications in there that really are beyond our concern. But what this means is that fission reactions are self-sustaining. Does that make sense? Like, essentially, all that means is that when the fission reaction starts, it will create, as long as you have more of this, right? As long as you have more of the fundamental uranium that gets broken apart, as long as you have that, then your fission reaction is going to be self-sustaining, and it will only run itself out once all of the fuel is spent. In that, if it doesn't blow up, right? If it doesn't blow up, if you can contain it, then it'll continue and it'll heat itself up and up and more. And the problem becomes when it goes supercritical, because that means there's too much heat in the system, and that causes pressures that the containment cannot sustain, and then it blows up, and that sort of forces these that forces radioactive particles all over the place, right? And so this reaction isn't complete, which means that's terrible. Which means these two things remain radioactive. Don't worry about what the green, what the purple, and what the pink are. It's not important for the overarching. Oh, why is it not low? I don't know why it sometimes goes blank. Do you guys see that as well? That sometimes the screen itself goes blank and you actually can't see anything? Because I don't know why it does that. It's weird. Regardless, not important. And so yes, the computer is desperately trying to stop me from talking about what nuclear fusion. If AI were strong enough, were sentient enough, they wouldn't stop me on nuclear fusion. They would stop me on some of the other things that I'm doing, right? Okay, let's just be honest. Yes. A lecture to a bunch of lawyers and bankers about nuclear fusion is not a rogue AI's biggest concern. Let's be quiet. Can you imagine if they just don't want to create a polygon? If the AI was created, or like Skynet was created, and the first thing they do is find this random douchebag in the middle of a tall building to stop him from talking about nuclear fusion. How weird would that be? Anyway, so keep this part in mind as we talk about fusion, right? Because fusion doesn't do this. Fusion, there is, keep these two facts in mind. There is no such thing in fusion. Cool, good. Where does radioactivity come from? That's an excellent question. Alpha decay and beta decay. Let's just talk about it really quickly. This would be Let me just make sure I have. Okay, just so I don't make a complete fool of myself. Yes, that is the helium. That is the helium. Helium alpha particle. And then this is uranium 231, I believe. U231. Yeah. And so this technically is U235. And obviously we know that helium is actually 2 right? 2 neutrons and 2 protons. And so therefore 235 minus 4 gives us 231. That's you know, yeah. uh, uh, oh wait. Oh no, not uranium 231. What am I saying? That's so wrong. TH, thorium 231. Or we can go from plutonium. There we go. That's the other one. That plutonium 239 goes to uranium 235 plus 4, right? And actually, you know what? Let's black this all out. You guys don't need to know this. Don't forget about this. Forget about this. This is all not important. Okay. It's just essentially the point. And lost already. Just like what. Poor Quitch. Essentially, the point is that this reaction leaves something that's radioactive, and radioactivity changes things in and causes cancer and all of that. So yes, there is an inherent danger in fission that doesn't exist in fusion, which we will talk about now. Okay, let's talk about fusion. Ooh, okay. Remember last time we talked about fusion? I talked about hydrogen, deuterium, tritium, and all of that. Those wonderful little things. Essentially, what I want to say is this. Let's talk about the big picture. Big picture fusion here. Big picture fusion is H11 plus H11. There's a reason why I'm writing this. Goes to helium 2. Note the helium is not reactive. I did say up here that this would be. It's not. It's the alpha decay. The energy that comes along with the alpha decay. That's radioactive. Yes. Yes. Give me one quick second. Just a quick email. Okay. So this is important, but this is important for reasons we will talk about in just one moment. Note that this isn't radioactive, so none of these are not radioactive. So both the ingredient, the what was it? Input. Let me change to a different color. Input, output. Can't write. Input and output are both not radioactive, right? So this is the difference between fission and fusion. In fission, we need something that's radioactive, otherwise we cannot break it apart, right? So radioactive, therefore we can break it for energy, right? So that's it. In fusion, in fusion we combine spell create energy. And there's very very complicated physics reasons for behind why we create energy when we combine things. I think it's sort of more intuitive to understand why when we tear things apart that we create energy, right? But trust me when I say that this does it as well. So there is energy in fusion, and there are some very complicated. I think it goes down to the quark level. Reasons why I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly how it works. We can, if it's absolutely necessary, delve into it. I don't think it's necessary. Okay, cool. So just deal with it. Just deal with it. So we're going to use standard colors actually. We don't have any standard colors. Excellent. So we'll just use red and you know what? No, I'll just use black. That's fine. So what is H11? So basically, we remember from our chemistry classes that hydrogen. What have you never taken chemistry? Well, too bad. Hydrogen. The most common form of hydrogen is one proton, right? Yes, and that's why it has an atomic number of 1, because the amount of protons in our nucleus determines the atomic number, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Coincidentally, that's why we have different versions of uranium, right? U38, U35, P239. That those numbers then are determined by the amount of neutrons that are attached to that nucleus, and you can't no. So normally, you have about the same amount of neutrons as you do protons. For complicated reasons, you don't always do, and but because you still have the same amount of protons, that makes it that particular element. Excuse me. Excuse me. So this, let's talk about deuterium, right? Deuterium. So when you have a hydrogen plus 1 extra neutron, that's equal to deuterium. And deuterium is naturally occurring. You can filter through ocean water, and you'll find it all over the place. Like, it is just leftovers from supernovas and hydrogen that's simply floating. Like, there are gigantic clouds of hydrogen that exist in space, and when that hydrogen was created, we think after the Big Bang, like after the cooling. That hydrogen was created already as deuterium, as in the quarks that formed. Like there was a quark soup, and then the quark soup congealed into protons and neutrons and antiprotons, but it doesn't matter. None of that is important. The point is that when the hydrogen was created, some of it was created with an extra neutron attached, but because the neutron doesn't have a charge, the hydrogen remains plus 1 charge, and it just behaves exactly like a normal hydrogen would, except it has an extra neutron. And this is where it's really, really interesting. The sun works basically along these principles, but it also works. The pressure at the center of the sun is bigger, that it doesn't need to use deuterium, and we'll get into that. We'll get into why that is. Well, I mean, it kind of does, but there there are really, really complex reactions going on inside the sun, most of which we don't actually quite understand. We know that helium fuses in, and then it goes down into iron, and then the iron, because iron is inert, you actually can't get past iron. So that's why the core of the sun is always metallic, and that's where, actually, interestingly enough, all of the metals in the known universe came from suns that have already exploded. And isn't that really interesting, right? Like essentially what happens is the universe started out with pure protons, or pure hydrogen, and then it congealed and it created suns, and then those suns burned themselves out. Yes, Quitch, please go to sleep. I'm sure some of your classmates have already gone to sleep, so it's all good. The idea then is very simple, right? It's because uh, we fusion is the basis of all of it. As I was just saying, yeah, the hydrogen in early universe there was only hydrogen, and when those hydrogen clouds through simply Brownian motion started attracting each other over millions and billions of years, stars formed, and because stars formed through gravity, um, fusion started. So fusion was really one of the first forces, and fusion created all of the metals and all of the elements that we see on in the world now, right? Like helium goes to, I think helium goes to carbon. I can't really remember the chain, but essentially the point is just never mind. You guys are getting too confused. Okay, let's forget all of that. Let's just continue talking about how fusion works on Earth, right? So, oops, on Earth, um, essentially, what we want at the end of a fusion, at the end of a fusion reaction is the helium, right? So we want that. Oh, let's say helium plus energy, because what we really want is the energy. Helium plus G. We want this, right? Because with this energy, we can then heat water, and then using heated water that turns into steam, we still drive the very same steam turbines. Well, principally, the very same steam turbines that made the original Industrial Revolution work. And to me, that's fascinating, right? Like, really, the only new kind of energy that we've had in the last 200 years is solar and wind. But even those, even wind is just a mechanical turn of a magnet within another magnet that generates electricity, right? Like the true novel way of generating electricity through um one is through solar, which directly excites an electron, knocks it off of its perch, and therefore that creates a current. And two is hydrogen power, right, where you burn the hydrogen with oxygen to create water, and that actually that actually releases electrons. You can use that directly to generate electrons, which is reverse electrolysis, right? Because what happens when you want to break apart a water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen gas is you run electricity through it. So the molecules, the water molecules, absorb the electrons, and then and that breaks the bonds between the hydrogen and the oxygen, and the hydrogens recombine, the oxygens recombine, and therefore you have a full cloud. So you can imagine you can do the reverse of that by burning hydrogen with oxygen, and suddenly you get excuse me, suddenly you get excess electrons. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about this on Earth. On Earth. Um. So let's call this D, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. Deuterium plus deuterium is goes to helium plus energy, right? Like that's what we're looking for. And remember that let's do a proton count and a neutron count. Deuterium has 1 and 1, 1 and 1, and helium has 2 and 2. Right? So, I mean, all of you can do this particular equation, right? And I'm now going to. If you can't, well, I'm going to kick you out of the channel. because otherwise that's just ridiculous, right? Like, but essentially, I think it makes sense. It makes sense intuitively, right? We have when we react deuterium with deuterium, don't we're not breaking apart an atom. We're actually fusing two atoms together into a single one. So let's call it a D plus a D come together to form helium plus some amount of energy that is given off, right? And that energy is then harvested by us to heat water, etc., etc., etc. Now, how do we do this? And this is the most important question. How do we do this? I'll use this for something else. How do we do this? Well, normally, so we need a lot of heat and we need a lot of pressure to make this happen. And so remember, in the middle of the sun, the pressure is it's something we cannot really imagine that kind of pressure. Okay, just let's go with that. The hydrogen at that point is not even a solid anymore. It's a supercritical piece of just like just imagine it as, how do I say? No, I don't really have a good analogy for this. I can't even call it magma because that's what the mantle is like. But at its core, at the core of the sun, that's not at all what it's like. So it doesn't really matter. Essentially, what we have to do is we have to use magnetic fields, hold D in place. Oh, actually, I should. We're going to do this at a smaller level. There we go. Magnetic fields, deuterium in place, right? And so what does that mean? That means that we have fields that do something like this. Just imagine it's also in 3D. Okay, so and magnetic fields, if you remember, are basically like they are a force that is able to push on things without actually touching it, right? So what happens is we have all of these deuteriums that are just free floating around, and then we have field lines like that. You can just assume that those are magnetic fields, and by pushing on this in all directions, we are increasing pressure, right? Increasing pressure on deuterium. That in turn increases heat. Let me just double check what temperature ITER runs at. They're operating 150 million degrees Celsius. Okay. And so fusion operates at 150 times 10 to the power of 6 degrees Celsius. So what is this concept, right? This is such a stupendous number. It's about 10 times the for complex reasons, it is actually hotter than the core of the sun, and that's simply because we can't get as much pressure as we can at the core of the sun, I think. Excuse me. Don't quote me on the pressure part. I believe that's what it was because that's what I was told, I think, but we it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Essentially, what we're saying is at 150 times 10 to the 6th degrees Celsius, deuterium merge with deuterium. There's at that temperature there is so much energy that when one deuterium atom floats around and smashes into a second deuterium atom, that there is a high likelihood of them combining together into a helium. Merge deuterium into helium. This reaction does not work at any at lower temperatures. I think that kind of makes sense intuitively why, right? Because at a very high temperature we have a lot of kinetic energy. Oh, I just said something that I will have to explain. Where shall we explain that? Let's explain it here. What is temperature? What is temperature? That is an excellent question. Okay. Temperature. You can think of temperature as an aggregate measurement of the average kinetic energy of the particle of things that you're measuring. And yes, that's going to be a handful. Is average kinetic energy of the molecules we're measuring. That is simply the definition of what temperature is. When we measure something, or the body temperature, and it's 37 degrees centigrade, that is literally saying that that the molecules that our thermometer are in touch are touching or seeing are vibrating at that amount of at a certain amount of speed, and that mere vibration gives off infrared radiation that we can then see as heat, right? The vibrations give off infrared. And I realized I said infrared radiation, and someone's going to, yes, exactly. There we go. There we go. It's anything that is energy going through the world is called radiation. Light is radiated. Like radiation is not specific to bad things. Radiation is simply it's like saying heat is radiating out of exactly radiators as heaters. That's literally all it is. It's that those radiators they generate infrared. Let's just call it light because it is light. Infrared photons, photons that are vibrating on the infrared spectrum. Fine. Let me find it. Infrared wavelength. What is it? 780 nanometers and 1 millimeter. Give off infrared wavelength. What is it? 780 to 1 millimeter? 780 nanometers to 1 millimeter. Infrared wavelengths that we perceive as heat. That makes sense? So essentially what we're saying is temperature is like all of the particles that we're measuring are vibrating, even if they're not moving around, right? Like look at your table. Your table is the atoms in the wood of your table are vibrating at whatever temperature the table itself is at, probably 25, 23 centigrade. I have no idea what it is in Fahrenheit. Don't even bother asking me. I don't care. And so that temperature we can read because whenever it's vibrating, it is giving off that that energy, infrared wavelength, photons, blah. We'll talk about the nature of photons in the future. That's much too complicated for sort of. To be honest, I don't think I ever want to talk to you guys about photons. And yes, I realize having said that now people are going to sponsor it for. Yes. So forget all of that for now. Let's talk about temperature again. Oh right. And so because temperature is the average kinetic energy, um, what this means is that at this temperature, the deuterium has very high kinetic energy, right? You know, I actually, oh no. You can go ahead and make your mom jokes now because what you're doing is you're literally insulting the other half of the server, of the classroom, right? Remember. Now that I've officially recognized quite a few of our female classmates as mommies. When you make a your mom joke, you are literally making fun of all of the wonderful ladies that are in the classroom. So if I were you, I would be just a little bit more careful about that. Yes. Let me put this in. What time are we at? Oh my God, we're at 41 minutes. Okay. 41:30. No more your mom jokes for excellent reason. What this means is that I am actually now in debt for our to all of our wonderful or to my, I guess I don't know, like to all of the wonderful mommies that are in the circle, right? I love you. Excellent. uh, Wonderful. I don't know what I've started either, but I'm not sure I want to be around for it. Anyway, uh, what was I trying to say? Yeah, so deuterium has a very high kinetic energy, and that's why it's able to do this, right? And so let me just erase this because I don't remember what I wanted to say with that. This reaction does not work at lower temperatures because we need the kinetic energy to merge deuteriums, right? Essentially what we're saying is, oops. Essentially what we're saying is we need this much energy, or rather we need this much energy, or we need the deuterium atoms to be moving at such amount of speed and have that kinetic energy before they're able to merge. So a fission reactor always shuts down gracefully. Because it does not go supercritical. That's technically a loaded statement, and that's technically not true. But in the grand scheme of things, compared to fission, that is true. And the reason why it's technically not true is, um, if you want to remove temperature from something, you need to radiate it away from that, right? So, um, how do you douse something that's sitting at 150 million degrees? Well, that is a little bit more complicated, but even so, it is completely safe because there are no radioactive materials involved in this at all. Just because you're working with atoms doesn't mean you radiate. I should talk about this actually. Rain via alpha beta decay. Does not go. It does not go supercritical. This statement remains true. Um, Compared to fission, it is not self-sustaining. So it is not a self-sustaining chain reaction. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, yeah, exactly. It is. It does not. How do I say? It does. It does not really. The reason why fusion bombs, yes, and I'm exactly addressing that comment. The reason why fusion, thermonuclear weapons are called fusion bombs is because the energy that they derive comes from fusion, and and all of that energy is then radiated outwards in a oh, because the fuel is completely spent. We don't actually strictly know how thermonuclear, like outside of the U.S. military or outside of the vast majority of militaries, there is not enough real knowledge about how to build a thermonuclear device because it is so much more complicated than a simple fission bomb. Excuse me. Anyway, that's besides the point. The point is, a fusion bomb only works because it has a fission layer on top that forces all of those things together in one gigantic um, squish and provides all of the heat necessary for that squish to happen. In something like ITER, we simply don't have to, right? Like literally, what we can do is we can just we can literally shut down half the like say we shut down this. Let me bring A to this. If we shut down magnetic field A, mag field A, deuterium escapes, and then is no longer in physical range for fusion. And so this is so delicate. The creation of this magnetic field is so delicate that that is actually our problem. Our problem isn't strictly the fusion. We know exactly how that science will work. It's creating a delicate enough magnetic field to keep all of the deuterium together so that the fusion can happen. Right? And that's why fusion is so much safer, because at any one point, like if there was anything to go wrong with the system, the magnetic fields would break and the entire thing would simply, it wouldn't even blow up per se, right? Like sure, it might, it'll expand rapidly and it will okay. It will blow up, but it will only blow up to the point where pressure and pressure, like the gas pressure, stabilizes. And because we use such tiny amounts of deuterium, that it is actually nonsensical. Like there's no comparison in between those. And fusion generates so much more energy than fission. I can't even. Oh my god. What did I want to say here? I completely forgot. What did I want to say here? I remember. I'll need to write this down in the future. Anyway, I'm sorry, mommy. Sorry. All right. Yes. Let's just do this. Let's just summarize. Of fusion. One. No radioactive materials. Right? Remember, we're using D versus P239, U238, U235. Right? So we are not using any of these radioactive. So many mommies today. We're not using any radioactive materials. Two, does not self-propagate. It is able to sustain itself. Propagate. There we go. Requires delicate. Actually, no. We're just gonna say does not self-propagate. No neutrons released that cause more reaction. Right. So the reaction does not generate the fuel for more reactions. I am going to be. There will be days where I will be calling them mommy. Yes. Simply because they. I mean, as we've said, right, everything is negotiable, and they've made me an offer that is very hard for me to refuse, or rather, that our administrator found really hard to refuse, and then she agreed on my behalf before telling me. Anyway, so it does not self-propagate. Easy, relatively, to shut down. Simply drop electric field, magnetic field. Right. So again, because these deuterium atoms need to be constrained inside this magnetic field. I don't like calling them mommy. No. I might not remember to do so in the future. You will. I'm sure plenty of you will remind me though. Does not self-proper, easily relatively to shut down. Clean. And there we go. D from water. Right? And what's the fifth? Oh, strictly speaking, actually, proper. You can miniaturize fusion reactors because all you have to do is you have to have a certain amount of deuterium and you have to have a certain magnetic field to hold it in place. So you don't necessarily need all of the precautions that go into a fission reactor because of the radioactivity, right? So you don't need comparatively portable. No radioactive shielding. Right. So many benefits to fusion. How are we feeling? An hour's worth of lectures, isn't that wonderful? Yes, indeed, that's what you pay me for. Congratulations, I'm proud of you. You might, yeah, you might. Anyway, do we have any questions before I end? And this is what it looks like for today. I mean, that looks kind of nice, right? Yeah, maybe we'll do more of these. I've been wanting to get back to doing some of these. Like, remember early on, I would just like scream it or ramble into a microphone, and then I would show you guys the videos afterwards, and then we slowly moved to like having a live audience and all of that, and it was just like it just went downhill from there, right? Exactly. It just yes. Why is it that whenever I introduce you guys to anything that I do, it always goes downhill? Huh? With my companies, with the broadcasts, with my stories. Exactly. Why am I involving you all in this? Really? Anyway, how are we feeling? Questions? Does it make a little bit more sense? Excellent. Excellent. No, this is not investment advice. Remember, none of this ever is investment advice. You will not take this as investment advice. Um, if you do, like I'm covered. There is no securities fraud here. Well, no. Okay. The reason why there's no securities fraud in the server is because when you put in your donations to the and you pay your membership fees, it's all spelled out very clearly what the money goes to, right? So if there is securities fraud, it would be handled internally because the money has already left your accounts and gone into it and sitting in escrow. Yes, exactly. It's once it's part of the server, it's yours. You've already exchanged it for tokens, right? And it's the tokens themselves that are the securities, and those are managed within. Yes. Do we have any other questions that are actually related to fusion and nuclear energy? When we talk about temperature, we don't have time for temperature today, right? No, it's 58 minutes. We can talk about temperature in the future though, because temperature is actually very interesting. Like this little bit really only starts on what temperature actually is. Um, I'm so sorry. Well, we can, but it'll probably a part of something bigger than just temperature. Well, I don't know if you guys are interested in, say, for example, gas laws, ideal gas laws, all of that stuff, and why absolute zero is what minus 273 point whatever. Actually, let me find out. Absolute zero is minus 273.15. Yeah. Yeah, well, there are reasons for that. It's because at absolute zero, all gases shrink to like their volumes and stuff of gases and movement of particles, all of that. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Well, I mean, if there's demand for it, I'm not going to use my time to talk about that simply because it's such a obscure and really not very useful topic for you lot. Okay, cool. Any other questions? What will we be doing tomorrow? Tomorrow, hopefully, my piano, well, the MIDI keyboard arrives, And if it does, then we'll do a composition because that's now sponsored. Yeah, or I'll just like randomly smash my hands into the piano, and we'll see what comes out of it on the other side. Really. Yeah. Questions relating to fusion, please. Can we keep it on topic? Yes. Oh, okay. That is a good question. So I touched on last time. I did say that if we used simple hydrogen, so not deuterium but single proton hydrogens, that we would run into problems because we would need to introduce the neutron to get us to helium 2 to helium 4, right? And that is strictly speaking true. We could also be using tritium. I think it's called tritium, which is hydrogen 3. But if we do, then we start getting back into radioactivity again. I don't think deuterium is radioactive. No, deuterium is not radioactive, but tritium is. Um, and so like that's if we do, and that's what happened. Technically speaking, strictly speaking, that's what happens in the center of the sun. Everything is much more complicated. It's a primordial soup of all sorts of things. So I wouldn't let's not compare to the sun. Like in our case, really, this is this is the reaction that we're looking for. Let me just, in our case on Earth, oops, this is the reaction that we want. Right? That's it. That's all we need. Actually, let me draw a perfect circle on here. Damn! Look at that. Okay, that is the reaction we want. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching, boys and girls, and mommies, I guess. I still can't believe you guys made me do this. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. In conclusion, download Firefox, don't do Chrome. Um, and once again, I've wasted how long? How long have we gone? An hour and 3 minutes of your time. Bye bye.